you enjoy the flow of life. You enjoy living life and not being afraid not to live. And that's when you
Yeah.
really start discovering yourself. You start seeing that. I was feeling it. I was just like, when is this dream going to come true? I know it's going to come true because I had a dream about it. And
Right.
it was the same feeling that I had when I was 5 years old. So I was so familiar with that feeling. I knew that it was going to become a reality.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. My book just fell. I appreciate you being here today, as I always do. Yeah, that's a bad start. I appreciate you being here, as I always do. And I am very happy to be fulfilling my promise to you today by bringing you another amazing success story. I've got Prince Daniels Jr. with me today. Prince, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
So let me tell you a little bit about Prince before we get going. So Prince is a former NFL running back turned high performance mentor, author, and entrepreneur who lives by the mantra, nothing is impossible unless you truly believe it is. Love that, by the way, Prince.
Thank
His,
you.
his personal story is one of determination and a true to life testimony that anything is possible. Prince's football career began as a walk-on for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. His coach told him that he'd never play college football, let alone make it to the NFL. He not only played, but he became a two-time all-conference tailback and the fourth leading rusher in Georgia Tech history with 3,300 yards. He was selected as a two-time all-academic, all-ACC student athlete, and in 2004, Prince ran for a still existing NCAA bowl game record of 311 yards and 4 touchdowns at the Humanitarian Bowl. That's awesome.
Thank you.
He was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in 2006 and played for 3 seasons there until his career ended prematurely due to an injury. That happens. Using meditation as a tool for recovery from his depression and loss of identity, Prince found his calling of helping professional athletes find their vision and purpose in the game beyond the game, life. His new book, Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete, Mastering the Balance Between Power and Peace, helps athletes and high achievers reach their ultimate potential. His podcast is the Prince Daniels Jr. Show. I listened to a couple of episodes of that in my preparation for this. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
His website is Prince Jr. Prince
Daniels.
Prince Daniels Jr. I had it written backwards. PrinceDanielsJr.com. He's at Prince ADJR on Instagram and Prince Daniels Jr. on LinkedIn. From an athlete who realized his dreams of playing in the NFL and going on to live a thriving and purpose-driven life, Prince's message is nothing short of inspirational. So Prince, I'm so happy to have you here today. I start every show with a simple question, man, and that is, how did it happen for you?
How did it happen for me? Well, it happened for me in the most subsequential way, in the most faith-driven way. It was, and resilience and persistence, and just believing, believing in my ability to make something happen, to create something. By nature, we're all creators, and we were made by a creator, or came from a creator,
Right.
to start creating it. So I've always felt that I had the confidence within me, and I can do anything that I put my mind and my heart to, and that's what I did. And so in everything that I came into contact with, I would always put a pure heart into it and a curious mind. And that always allowed for me to flourish and become great in whatever that I do. And I never ever looked at a situation from a fear stance first. It was always that what I can do, not what I can't do.
Right.
So it was always what can I do? And a lot of people, they are conditioned to think that, oh, I can't do that. And when you express or verbalize, I can't do something, you are correct, and the action follows. But when you express that you can, then all the cells in your body, start to come together, and they work together to help you make that verbalization become a reality. So if you say that you can't, or you say that you can, you're right. Like Henry Ford
Yeah,
said,
like Henry Ford said. Yeah.
right?
And that did that come from inside of you, or did it come from, was it transferred to you by your parents? How do, at what age do you remember having this mindset? And I ask because so many people struggle with getting to the point where they have that confidence, where they have that curious mind, and when can't is a word that is not part of their vocabulary.
Right. Well, I can give you two instances.
Yeah.
I, a lot of things, our environment molds us into who we are. And then as we get older, we realize that there are other things that we can learn. But for me, it started when I was 19 months. And I was very courageous, very brave. And, I was jumping off the porch at 19 months.
Wow.
Remember, well, I can vaguely remember, but uh, my mom and my great grandfather were sitting on the porch, and I basically walked to the edge of the porch and I sized it up, how far my jump would be, and I looked down and I looked back and I started smiling, and uh, I was getting ready to jump, and before I jumped, my mom was about to stop me, but then my great grandfather stopped her and told her, "Hey, don't stop that boy. Look how courageous he is." He said, "That's your gold mine right there." And so I jumped. And when I jumped, I fell. I got dust. I got dirt and dust on me. Got back up and I did it again and I did it again and I did it so many times. When I when it was time for me to go inside the house, basically they just put me to sleep. They didn't give me a bath that night, because I was enjoying myself. And so,
Right.
it began there, but it actually begun, uh, you know, millennial years ago, eons ago, because that's how I came out of the womb. I think that's how a lot of kids come out of the womb, but it's their environment that molds them. The next thing is, at the age of 5, um, I had a dream that I could ride my bicycle, and so leading up from 2 to 5, I'm pretty sure your parents probably give you some advice, but it's difficult to remember anything that happened between the age of 0 and 4.
Yeah.
So at the age of 5, I do remember this one particular moment where it was Christmas, and we were in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, on the campus of USM, and uh, I received a bicycle as my present, and I happened to receive this bicycle with training wheels on it. But the night before, I had a dream. Well, I actually saw the bicycle in the middle of the night. And so I went back to sleep and I had a dream that I rode the bicycle without training wheels. And I was just on a cloud, just riding the bicycle. So the next morning I wake up, I go to my mom, I said, "Mom, I just had a dream that I could ride my bicycle without training wheels. Can we take the training wheels off?" And she was just like, "You've never ridden a bike before." Like, no. And I told her, I said, "I saw it in my dreams. I can do it." And she said, "Okay, well, if you can do it, then let's go ask your dad." I went to go ask my dad, and he said, "You think you can do it?" I said, "I know I can." So we go outside, he takes the training wheels off. I get on the bike without any assistance, and what happens? I fall over. And when I fall over, I could feel myself getting real hot and emotional in the inside. And I was on the verge of shedding some tears, but my dad, he asked me, he's just like, "You okay?" And I told him, "Yeah." And I told him, "I don't want any help. I got it." So try to do it again, and I fell to the other side. So the third time, I decided to get clever, and I saw a curve, and I went to the curve, and I put one foot on the curve so I could balance myself on the bike
Mm.
because the bike was too big for me, and no training wheels, right? So I get on the bike and I actually start pedaling, and I could feel myself pedaling. And I could feel the push down my right foot. My left foot came, and I remember the steering wheel was a bit shaky, and all of a sudden I started to gain a little speed, and I have some balance and I'm riding. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Boom. And I smash into this big garbage can. Bing. And so I didn't know how to turn, right? And
Yeah. Okay.
in my dreams, whenever you have a dream, you don't think about turning. You just
Right.
riding, riding the
Right.
wave, right? And so I fell, and when I fell, I had tears of joy in my eyes, and I got up, and I was like, I did it, I did it. And at that moment, that was the first time that I realized that your dreams do become a reality, and that nothing is impossible unless you truly believe it is. And the significant thing about that is no man has previously told me, if you believe in yourself, or if you believe in this, then this could happen. It was something that was esoteric, metaphysical.
Yeah.
It was like a calling in my dream. It was a vision that I saw for myself, and I believed that it could happen. And the fact that I believed that it could happen, and I actually made it happen in my reality, let me know from there that, wow, this is what you can do. And so that was my beginning, and that's how it all began, and that's how it all started. And for me, I just always had that notion, like nothing is impossible. Even when I was faced against all the odds, I was always, the person that was always going against the grain, knowing that I could do it this way and it's going to work. And I feel
Right.
that it's going to work if I do it this way. Because if I go that way, then I'm not going to be my authentic self. And so I've always followed my authentic self. I've always knew that there was something inside of me that would allow for me to be great. And as time went on, I figured out what that thing is. So we can talk
So,
about that later.
yeah, a couple questions off of that. This whole coming out of the womb courageous. I love that idea. And are you a parent now?
I am.
Okay. And as am I. I've got two girls, and I think one of the things
And
that parents get accused of a lot now, like you said, is you mentioned, it's not how you come out, it's the environment you come out into. And
yes,
so many of us, I say myself included, you don't want your kids to get hurt. You don't want so you're perhaps overprotective, um, or you start limiting them by saying can't yourself. You can't do
right,
that. Don't do
right,
this. Don't
right,
do that.
right.
No,
Yeah.
on and on. And I wonder, has that been your experience? How do you manage it with with your kids?
Yeah. So I have two daughters as well. So I'm right there with you.
Nice.
Kudos to you. And girl power, right, for all the
Yeah.
listeners. And um, I'm very conscious. I'm a very conscious parent, and my wife and I we make sure that we stay conscious in how we raise our children, because the goal as a parent is to make sure that your kids are better off than you, right? And
Yeah. Right.
so the word can't cannot be expressed in our house, even in just a casual conversation. You know, like we substitute, or we use, not able to right now instead of can't, because can't becomes a word that you use every day, and it becomes a part of your vocabulary. And when you use that word over and over again, then you have a can't mindset. And
Yeah.
so we're really big on mindset, and we're really big on our habits, and how we present ourselves to our children, because our children, they're constantly watching you. James Baldwin, the great poet, he had said that children uh, do not listen, tend to not listen to everything that you say, but they mimic everything that you do. I know it's a bit off. I'm not able to paraphrase every single thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was along those lines. And so when you actually read that quote, and then you start to become observant of your behavior and your habits, then you start to realize, like, whoa, okay, I don't want to repeat the same cycle. So how do I break this cycle? I start educating myself. I start becoming mindful of, like, what do I do? How do I present myself to my children? What do I want them to represent? And what do I want them to see? How do I want them to show up? when it comes to their presence. You know, do I want them to show up shy and meekish, or do I want them to show up very confident and brilliant and
Yeah.
just embrace that, right? And being mindful of, a good friend of mine, Charlie Smith. He said, uh, you know, even at the pool, when you're at the pool and your kids are excited and they're running, the first thing we say,
Slow
stop,
down. Yeah.
stop, yeah, stop,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
instead of just saying walk, we usually say
Ah,
don't run,
don't
right?
run.
Don't
Yes.
don't run, and he said all you have to say is walk. He said you may have to say it a couple of times, but walk, walk, walk is better than saying don't run.
Tell me
And
the behavior you want, not the behavior you don't want.
yes,
Right.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, as I mentioned before, how I never started off by saying what I can't do. I've always started off by saying what I can do,
Yeah.
and that's what allowed for me to separate myself whenever I participated in sports, whenever I participated in anything in life. It's just about what I can do, and I've always had this affinity, strong, immense uh, feeling of like I can do this,
Yeah.
and the actions follow, and I do it.
So after the the bicycle dream, what was the next dream for you?
Man, it was many more, but if I can pinpoint it, the next dream that really stood out was uh, in college after being a walk on for first year and a half. I earned a scholarship, and the next year I became the starting running back at Georgia Tech. Where I went from number seventh on the depth chart at running back to number one. So I became the starting running back, and we had a big game against Florida State, and so we went to Tallahassee, and like the energy and the environment and the gravity of the environment was just so high. And I remember um, prior to the game, my coach, he was getting me pumped up and inspiring me, and he was just saying, "Look, man, these guys, they put their clothes on just like you. They don't go in no phone booth and put on a cape and some tights and some boots and and have a big S on their chest." And so that right there helped minimize like how you perceive, you know, uh, a team that's like really magnified and amplified in the media, right? And so that just built up the courage. And going into the game, it seemed like all the stars aligned, for me to have a successful game. So I'm a walk on. It's the third game of the season, and I'm still trying to figure out how do I, become the starting running back. I am the starting running back, but how do I have the mentality of I'm the man now? I'm the starting running back for Georgia Tech. And so, uh, because there were certain things that I was doing the first two games where I wasn't timid. I was running really hard, but I would always prepare myself to get tackled instead of
Yeah.
breaking a big run to go score a touchdown. All right. And so this game that happened. But before it happened, I had another dream. And I had a dream that I was gonna score a touchdown and dive into the end zone. And I remember what happened the night leading up to that. So as I mentioned, I feel like the stars were aligned at the time. Our team chaplain, Derek Moore, former running back for the Detroit Lions, and now he is a player development personnel person at South Carolina Gamecocks. And man, he was sharing, one of the stories in the Bible, David and Goliath, and his story was so riveting and so invigorating and inspiring. And I just remember my leg was just bouncing up and down, and I'm looking around at everybody like, "You not feeling this? What's wrong with y'all?" And so he would grab a sheet of paper and he would show the score of Florida State against Georgia Tech in the past, and he would say, "We didn't win this one, but it's okay, because guess what? We're gonna turn this into a stone." So he would crumple up the paper, and he's like, "This is a stone," and I'm just like, like, let's go! I'm ready to go play right now. So that inspired me, and then I go to sleep that night, and as I'm sleeping, my body is asleep, but I am conscious. I'm super conscious. Everything that was going on the night before, my roommate and I, we were listening to some music, and I could hear the music playing the whole time. We had it on repeat, and for a moment, I had an out of body experience where
Hmm.
I was able to see myself on the bed, and I remember I was like twitching like I was a dog, like how their legs move whenever they're
Yeah, yeah,
sleeping.
yeah. My dog
It's
does that all the time. Yeah.
right. So that's how I was moving. I was twitching, and during that time, I dreamt that I was going to break a long run and dive into the end zone. And so I woke up the next morning. The sun, I woke up with the sun, and I remember before I opened my eyes, I said, I'm going to score a touchdown. And then my eyes popped open. And so now I'm getting ready for the game. And it's big game. Florida State is ranked top 25 in the nation, and they are this and they are that, and they're going to beat Georgia Tech. And so we end up losing the game 13-14. But that run became a reality. It was in the fourth quarter. I was trying the whole game. I was feeling it. I was just like, when is this dream going to come true? I know it's going to come true because I had a dream about it. And
Right.
it was the same feeling that I had when I was 5 years old. So I was so familiar with that feeling. I knew that it was going to become a reality. And so at that moment, I'm trying and I'm trying. And it was that one moment where I stopped trying and I just kind of surrendered to the process. And when I did, I remember the quarterback going through the cadence. Blue, wait, set, boom. Everything started going slow motion.
Oh
And I could
man.
see what was going on at the time. And I remember the quarterback gave me the football. I'm looking at every linebacker and every DB that they have, and I'm just talking to myself. I'm just like, hey, that's so and so. He's supposed to be going first round. Oh, there's a hole. Wow, run through the hole. It's just like, while I'm running. And prior to that week, I remember my uncle. So my family is very supportive in my upbringing and my environment. So my uncle was just like, man, you got speed, man. Rely on your speed, man, and stop sticking out your stiff arm. Because when you do, you stick it out too early and you leave your arm out so the defender could tackle you. He's like, rely on your
Ah.
speed. So as I'm running, there's a defender, a cornerback coming from my left side, and I see him. And as I see him, I go to stick out my stiff arm and I curl my arm back in. And I just start running. And because I remembered while I'm running, while everything's going on, I remember exactly what my uncle said.
Yeah.
He's like, don't put your stiff arm out, man. Keep your stiff arm in, rely on your speed. And it was just like, rely on my speed. I was like, oh, I'm running. This is my longest run right now. I was like, feet don't fail me now. Feet don't fail me now. And so as I'm running, there's another Florida State defender hauling ass from the other side of the field. And so we meet at the 3-yard line and I jump. And when I jump, everything went silent again, like woof. Because I came out of being in the zone, in their flow space,
Yeah.
right? And because I'm running now, I realize like, oh shit, I'm running. Like, here we go. Like, oh, gotta score this touchdown. This is the dream. This is the dream. And as we both jump into the air, boom, boom, I land in the touchdown. I land in the end zone. And I remember it was like, boom. It was like I was in a quiet room, but I was in the stadium. And boom, boom. And I remember my teammate, he was standing over the top of me. And he was grabbing me. And I was like, what happened? What happened? I was like, did I score? And he's like, did you score? And it was like, did you score? Pick me up, and it was just like, dun, 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 dun. I heard our band playing, and you can hear the whole Florida State stadium. It was quiet. They didn't know what to do. And I was just like, it came true. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized like there is something beyond us that we have not been able to tap into. It's difficult to tap into it when you haven't been trained to do it. It just kind of happens. That's why a lot of athletes, they're thrusted into the zone because they have an out of body experience because they push themselves, past a threshold. But later on in life, I started to learn how to get to that threshold and be able to tap into the zone, you know, like any other thing.
That the Florida State crowd was in the opposite flow state of you at that point. It sounded like
They definitely were.
that was really an amazingly vivid recollection of those couple of moments. I appreciate you sharing that. And the thing you said was the thing your uncle said was cool, right? And then, but the thing you said was, I was trying too hard. Why
Yeah,
wasn't this happening? I was trying too hard.
yeah,
And when you try too hard, you probably are unconsciously, at least, you're dealing with the obstacles instead
right.
of focused on the opportunity. Maybe, I don't know.
You know, Master Yoda said it best. You know, when I was trying, uh, that's what I was going to continue to do was try. And he said, "There's no try. There's only
Yeah,
do.
do it.
And
Yes.
yeah, do or don't do. Right."
Yeah.
And so, once I stopped trying, I just let go. I remember I just like exhaled, just like, and it happened. And like I said, when the quarterback called hut, just remember stepping to the right. I had an open step to the right, and everything just slowed down. Like, it's like, whoa, I'm in the matrix. Everything just slowed
That's
down.
exactly what it sounded like when you were talking about it, like you're in the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how it happens. And
Huh.
yeah, and I've had those moments, you know, numerous times playing football. But uh, I'm in that flow space now in life because of the practice that I do and the mindfulness that I teach.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that. One more question on that I have for you
Yes.
is, what caused you to walk on at Georgia Tech?
Mm.
What other, did you have other opportunities that you didn't want? You wanted to go here specifically, or was it that what was it?
Uh, it was it was my life. It was a little bit of my journey. What caused me to be a walk on at Georgia Tech was I didn't do well on the standardized tests. I was highly recruited in high school. I had offers from major schools: Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Tulane, Brown, Colgate. Uh, you know, and uh, I didn't do well on the standardized test. So
Okay.
that year, the Georgia Tech recruiting coach came out to recruit at my high school for the very first time. And my coach, he basically was saying, "Hey, we got a kid highly recruited, fell underneath the radar after signing day because he didn't do well on the standardized test. Take a look at him." And so the coach saw one play of me on film, and he came out to meet me and asked me if I knew anything about Georgia Tech. At this time, I was running track, so I was the only guy that did not sign with a school, and yeah, it hurt my pride. But
Yeah.
you know, like I was always, I was always doing the right thing, and so whenever you do the right thing, the right stuff comes out of that, right? And so my everything was in alignment for me. So I spoke to the coach at Georgia Tech, turned on a partial scholarship from North Texas, and I went to Georgia Tech, and and the rest is history. You know, went there, started. Even though the odds were against me, I still had this persistent attitude, this mentality that uh, that nothing is impossible unless you truly believe it is. And
Hmm.
I worked at it until my dream became a reality.
And how were you received by the rest of the team, Prince, as a walk on?
In the
That's not.
beginning or later
Yeah.
on?
Well, I'm thinking that later on it was pretty welcoming, but
Yeah.
at the
So,
beginning, yeah,
yeah. At the beginning, you're a walk on. You're treated like a
you're,
little. You're a dummy. You know, like
yeah,
the
okay,
coaches set the tone. The coaches they set the tone, and you know how you're represented, and you know they give you an odd number. Like you get the 100 numbers
yeah.
in the locker room. So everything, you know, the if you're on a team, your number stops at
It's
99, right? From 0 to 99. And so I think I had 104. That was my number, 104. And
so zero status. In other
yeah,
words, it's okay.
zero status, you know, but I had what a lot of other teammates did not have, and that was heart. That was like so much heart, like to the point where I wasn't afraid of anybody or anything, and I was willing to fight and scrap with anybody because I knew that I had it in me, and it was expressing itself. And that was me expressing myself that I know I can do this. I believe I can. I see it. And the little opportunity that I would get, you can see like a glimmer of hope. I had a lot of potential, but no coaching at the time. And so it was
Yeah.
just raw talent and pure desire and will, to make it happen. And I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but visualization played a big part in there, and just being able to see yourself over and over again. If you say that you're going to do something, make sure that all your actions lead towards that. And that's what I did. So my teammates, it started off as like, man, who is this kid, man? Who this little kid? He always going hard in practice, man. He need to stop. He need to slow down. But I didn't. And eventually, the respect came, because when the pivotal moment for me was when my coach had told me, at the time, the coach at the time, he told me that I sucked. He told me that I sucked and that I wouldn't amount to anything and that I was too mechanical. And so I wouldn't play at Georgia Tech. And my chances of playing at Georgia Tech are 1 in 1,000,000. And my chances of playing in the NFL are 1 in 1 billion. So I took that moment, that meeting, as my fuel to fuel my rocket. And I made it up in my mind that I wasn't going to allow for anybody to tell me what I can and cannot do. And so I worked. I worked. I became a student. I studied, and I just put my all into what I was doing. I just stayed focused in the process. And um, I would run to workouts in the morning time and run back to the dorm room after workouts. When my teammates, they would offer me rides, and I would turn down the rides. I was so determined. Somebody told me that I sucked and that I couldn't make it,
Yeah.
and I knew that I could because I felt it in my spirit. So that was the first time that I was faced with uh, not adversity, but I was faced with um, something that was out of my control, and my coach is telling me that I wasn't good enough. And so you can either falter or you can flourish, and I chose to flourish.
Do you think so? It sounds like terrible coaching. Do you think that the coach was trying to motivate you or break you down?
Uh, the latter,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, I don't think any. If you want to get something out of your players, out of anybody, uh, berating them and speaking to them in a condescending manner is not going to, you know, uh, it's not going to allow for them to play at their full potential.
Yeah. You'd think that
Because
would be obvious to everyone, Prince, but there's still a lot of coaching and leadership out there with where that's what they think works.
exactly, and people need to be motivated. They need to be inspired, right?
Yeah.
Because that all comes from the inside. But I think a lot of coaches are still rooted in their old ways. This is what they were taught. But things are changing. Things are constantly changing,
Right.
and so uh, some coaches keep that same regimen and routine and mindset, and they usually find success like 20 years later, right? But in between that time, all they had to do was just be able to adapt, like a new way, not even a new way, but adapt a way that's um, adaptable to the change that's happening, right? And they will win more. But yeah, some coaches still do it, and that's what they're going to stick with. That's what they were
Yeah.
taught, and so they said, "This is the tradition. This is how we do it. This is how you win games." And they have that belief, and they never change it.
Yeah. And having a little bit of success with that, despite that approach, uh, can sort of blind you to that approach really works instead
Most
of opening your eyes to what I can still win and not do. I don't have to do that. In fact, I can win more.
right,
Right.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly.
So in 2006, that 1 in 1 billion chance
Yeah,
happened.
it
Okay.
did.
So what did it, what, when that happened, what did it feel like? And then when your career in the NFL ended, what did that feel like? Because I think that gets to, all the work you're doing now. So in a 3-year period of time, you went from 1 in a billion chance being realized to, now what, right? So help me understand what that was like.
Wow. I mean, the getting drafted was like a once in a lifetime moment. I remember like it was yesterday. I was in New York, and I was under the impression that I was going to get drafted on the very first day, within the first and third round, and I didn't get drafted until the next day. And so all this anticipation, created anxiety and fear within me. All right. So I just said the next day, I'm not even watching TV. I'm not going to watch TV. I don't care. I'm just going to put my phone over there. I don't even care if anybody calls me. Right. I was just trying to avoid uh, the unknown, the unknown outcome. So I decided to take a shower, and all of a sudden my phone rings with this unknown number. Just like, who in the hell? So I pick it up, and it was the Baltimore Ravens. And it's funny because they said, PJ Daniels. It's like, yes, this is he. It's like, this is so and so from the Baltimore Ravens. Has anybody called you? I was just like, no, nobody called me. They were just like, okay, we'll call you back. I was like, what? Hold on. What do you mean you gonna call me back? Like, no. So I
You're
turn off the
messing with
shower.
me, man. Yeah.
Man, you're messing with my
Yeah.
emotions, man. So I turn off the shower, and I get out of the shower. And so I'm sitting there, I turn on the TV, and I'm sitting there, and I got the phone beside me, and it's just like, Baltimore Ravens is on the clock. Right. And I'm just like, they on the clock. What kind of phone call was that? And so it's like 5 minutes left. And they say, we, the Baltimore Ravens, are on the clock. My phone rings probably like 1 minute later after I see that in that 5 minutes. And it's like, PJ Daniels, we're going to select you as our 132nd pick in the fourth round. You are a Raven, man. I'm just like, what? This is real? Like, oh, so at that time, my parents, my mother and my sister, they were down the hallway. And after I got drafted, I just saw my face flash before the screen. Mel Kiper, he was talking about me. He's just like, man, the Baltimore Ravens just got a jewel, PJ Daniels.
Oh,
And
man.
so, like everything came up on the screen, and I was just like, wow, that's me. And from there, like my mom, my sister, they was just knocking on my door. I hurried to put some clothes on, and they came in, and we rejoiced, and they're really excited. And I just told the Ravens, I said, like, you got yourself a jewel. You don't even know yet. And so I was ready to work. I just told them, I said, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to be the best running back in the NFL. And I was on to a good start, but one thing that I did not have was a mentor. I had a coach, and I had a teacher, but I didn't have a mentor. And I needed a mentor because the way that I process things was always like from the top down to the bottom, never from the bottom to the top. My mind was just always trying to figure out how this whole system works. And once I understand how it works, then I understand, hey, this is where I fit in. And I know this is where I fit in because watch, I'm going to excel because I understand this, and this. And I did not have that. So my career was short lived. And after that, now going to when I was released from Baltimore, it was going into my third year. Uh, I was incentivized with if I do well, get a new contract. So it was my contract year, and I ended up getting hurt at the beginning of the season, and that was really devastating because I tore my labrum, and that was like the first time that I actually had an injury, other than tearing my meniscus and my knee. Yeah, believe me. Yeah, so
The labrum is in your hip. Is that where that is?
in your shoulder.
Oh, shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, So I ended up injuring my labrum from a run, and then I tripped over my own foot. I was running so fast, tripped over my own foot, tried to put my hand down to brace my fall, and I just grinded it out. And, the momentum from my body just grinded out my shoulder. And so, anyway, that was the end of my third year, my contract year with the Ravens, and this was during training camp. So I had to make a decision if I was going to play that year, if I was going to sit out the year. So I decided to sit out and do a rehab back in my alma mater, and I spent time there. And I basically sequestered myself from the Ravens because mentally and emotionally I wasn't there. Right, I was ready to contribute. I was ready, and everyone saw that I was ready, and everyone knew that I was ready because I had this intense focus. Not to mention, I had just spent a week at the monastery before I went back to camp. And I was just saying to myself, oh, y'all don't even know. I'm about to zen out on you all. I'm ready to I'm going to take this to a whole nother level. And when I got injured, it seemed like everything just, just failed on me.
Hmm.
And I just lost the love for myself, lost the love for the game, and didn't really have much direction. So I didn't want to be around too many people. I just wanted to go back to where it all started and just get back to the basics. And so I went back to Atlanta, Georgia, and that's what I started doing. I just by myself in a one bedroom apartment, no furniture, just an air bed, and that was it, and my dog. And so I would go running in the woods with my dog, and uh, you know, uh, look to rebuild myself. And so when I came back to Baltimore, like I barely saw anyone. I barely showed my face. So when I came back to Baltimore, they said that it was going to go in a different direction. And I was devastated because I did rebuild myself mentally, physically, and emotionally, but uh, the opportunity wasn't there anymore. And so uh, looking back, I was blaming others, but it was me because I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to say I need help. I didn't know how to say I don't know what's going on with me, but I want to be here, but I don't want to be here because I don't want to lose it. I was threatening
Yeah.
people. Um, I was just in a very bad mental space. I was just, yeah, my threats. I was making threats, and I was
To like coaching staff or to
no,
the
to team,
management or to
yeah,
teammates?
to teammates, and
Okay.
and I was willing to carry out those threats, and
Oh,
so
that seems like a dramatic change.
yeah, it was, man, and because I'm just angry I wasn't able to contribute, angry I wasn't able to produce, angry I wasn't able to live out my dream, and so when you get angry at yourself, you start lashing out at other people, and for me it was that's what I was doing, and so I felt, I knew that I had to remove myself. So I did not carry out that stuff because, I was really passionate about what I did and I was very good at it. And I just figured out the game of football from a mental standpoint. And, and that's when I realized like, man, like I needed someone to guide me, just point me in the right direction and say, hey, you'll be all right, man. Just do this. Like, let's talk every day, right? And I'll coach you through it. I'll be your mentor.
Hmm.
But since I did not have that, I didn't know what to put my emotions into. I didn't know what to put my energy into, except from the stuff that I learned in the past. And uh, yeah, so that's how my career went with Baltimore.
Okay.
And then when I came back, they told me they was going to release me. They was going to go in a different direction. And at that moment, I was stunned and paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. And so I had one more workout with the Buffalo Bills, but I wasn't prepared because I didn't know what the next thing was going to. I didn't know the next thing that was going to happen once I was released from Baltimore. So once I had to work out with the Buffalo Bills, I didn't really get in shape. I was just kind of like sitting around, like on my hands, twiddling my thumbs, trying to figure out like what's next. And so after that workout, I started working out, and I never received the phone call, so I missed my opportunity. and I had worked out for a whole year, and no one called, and that was a moment where I became depressed after that, and that spiraled into something else.
And what you have a program now that you run called Game Beyond the Game, where you help other players um, figure out their purpose, after playing, which I imagine is difficult for a lot of people because, when you one commit yourself to doing something at the highest level and get recognized for it, it's pretty heady stuff, right? And you think
Right,
it's, as young people, you probably think it's going to go on like that forever, right? Like you're invincible, like you deserve that,
right.
or whatever. But how did you move beyond the game? So I mean, you mentioned where you were. It sounded like you were in a really bad place
Yeah,
mentally, mentally,
yeah,
spiritually, maybe too,
yeah.
physically, maybe. But what, how did you get, you know, beyond the game?
Uh, Great question. So I got beyond the game, one step at a time, one day at a time, and luckily I had something set up. As I mentioned before my career ended, my going into my second year, that's when I started going to the monastery, started entertaining going to the monastery,
Yeah.
and I really got focused my going into my third year. But when I was injured, and I was just mad at everyone, and luckily, uh, while I was at home and I had planned my 3 day demise, uh, there was a moment where I was given the advice to meditate, and I was saying to myself, "How in the hell is meditation going to save me? This doesn't make no sense." And so it actually did. I had a meditation for 1 hour, and out of that 1 hour, I had a realization and an enlightenment moment. And so from there, I made the decision to go and live at the monastery for some time, and I did. And so from there, it allowed me to discover who I was, because I had an identity crisis. I identified myself with being a professional athlete, and that's who I
Yeah.
was. Um, the Baltimore Ravens running back, PJ Daniels. So I wouldn't present myself as PJ Daniels, the Baltimore Ravens running back. It was the Baltimore Ravens running back, PJ Daniels. So that right there, is like a strong indication that my identity was tied up into being a professional athlete, and I had to strip myself of that identity and find a new identity, which was within me, which everyone has, and so I started looking within, because I needed to do that. And so what I help other individuals do is uh, discover their purpose, their vision, and help them create the mindset and create a manageable mindset to be able to see that through and live into it. And so that's what I do right now, and that's what Game Beyond the Game fosters, helping all athletes uh, see their potential after the game, and make a more of a fluid transition.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing some of that, by the way, because as I'm thinking through, I'm like, it's amazing introspection too. And the meditation, I would have thought if it were me and I was already feeling the way you had described yourself as feeling, the last thing I'd want to do is meditate, because the only thing I could think about was the thing I didn't want to think about.
Right.
Um, what's the you'd been going to the monastery before, you mentioned that, and even though you were going, you still had this identity crisis that you mentioned after your third year. What made you go there in the first place, and then what made you think that that was the way for you to get out of this when you had already been there, you know, directly before that season you described, and it didn't seem to get you where maybe you wanted, needed to be, I guess, in your head.
Yeah. So when I initially went to the monasteries for more selfish reasons to uh, improve my game, right?
Okay.
Just like I'm about to be the best running back in the NFL, so I need to take my mindset to a whole nother level. And I felt the best way to do it is to actually go to a monastery and spend time with monks and really understand what life is about. Because I felt that once I get this understanding, I can come back and this is going to be a piece of cake, right? And so uh, that's what led me to the monastery. And also, I have four uncles, but two of my four uncles, they were the inspiration behind me uh, going to the monastery, because they would go to the monastery and when they would come back, they would be glowing, like literally glowing, like had this aura around them, and you can see it. It's just like, wow, it's so scintillating. It's just like, yeah, like whatever that you did, I want some of that.
Right.
And so, I mean, and you didn't just see it like here and there. It was like you could see it all the time, and everywhere that we would go, like people would just stare at us, and it's because my uncles, they had this glow about themselves, and I was always attracted to that glow, and I had that glow myself, but I wanted it to be as imminent as their glow was. And
Hmm.
so, and I knew where they were going, I knew where the source was, so I was just like, I'm going here. And that's what led me to the monastery. But then after my career was over, I needed something to lean on. And uh, what I needed to lean on was myself. And so the monastery was really good for me, because I was all about looking to sequester myself, and figure out who I was. And so that had always been my thing. And some of the advice that I received after retirement was going back to school, go and be a business person, and and you know do these things, right? But that's not what I felt in my heart. That wasn't what my intuition was saying, because I needed to know who I was, and I didn't want to get distracted by what I do, because I was just let down from that same situation of, I identified with what I did instead of who I am. And so I needed to know who I was before I went out into the world to do something,
Right.
right? And so that was my conviction, my devotion of going to the monastery and spending time there, because I needed to know that there was more to this world. And I had been exposed to it uh, at a young age through my dreams, right? And so now I want to see, if this was a whimsical experience or if this is the real deal. And I realized eventually it was a real deal. And so I was very proud of myself. But uh, that's what motivated me and inspired me to go to the monastery. Just felt like I had no more options, no more lifeline. That was my last lifeline. And so just like, what the heck?
Yeah. Okay. And how did you know when, how did you know when you knew who you were? And how did, like, when did you know? How long did it take? Because I'm just really curious about, I love the journey, and I could see myself on the journey. I could see my listeners on the journey, and then I could see myself asking, okay, am I there?
Right.
Do I know who I am yet? And
Right.
how did how did that come for you?
You know, in the same way when you know that you're hungry, you know that you're thirsty, right? It's nothing that you question.
Right.
It's just, oh, I know myself. And it didn't happen instantaneously. And it just took some time, because again, I had to strip myself of what I identified as, and recreate, rebuild, recondition myself to who I am now. And once I had an opportunity to look within myself, that's when I became whole. I didn't come holier than thou. I became whole, because
WHOLE.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, so I spent the time looking within, and we don't spend time looking within ourselves. We're not taught that. We're taught, to look for success outside of yourself, to look for money outside of yourself, to look for other things outside of yourself, happiness and love. When all of that comes from within. All right, and
Right.
so once I've experienced a lot of enlightenment moments in my life, and in the beginning, it started off small, and it's one of those things that you question, like, did, did that really happen? I think I'm having some psychotic problems right now. I'm seeing things or having visions, like I'm losing my mind. Is this real? But the more and more you practice, the more you become familiar with the things that you think are not real. They become real to you, and the things that you perceive as real, they're not so real. They're just an illusion. And
Yeah.
so from that moment, I started realizing, like, wow, this is it. And so you go through a point of being exposed to vulnerability. And after that vulnerability comes, like, you start shedding tears and you start crying, because it's like you merge with the light that's so bright, and that reminds you how illuminating you are, in the inside. And from there, you walk different, you talk different, you carry yourself different. You can feel the love inside of yourself. And that's what I felt. And that's when I knew, like, yeah, this is it. This is it. And so um, that's how I carry myself. And so I carry that whenever I speak to other people, whenever I work with them, whenever I share the information with them, that there's something inside of you. There's a light that's inside of you, but you don't know how to allow that light to blossom, to illuminate, to shine bright. And so I go through the mechanics and I give them tools to be able to work on that, because whenever they get an opportunity to see that light that I'm describing, uh, which words are inadequate to describe what I see, but whenever I put them on that path and they actually continue with the practice and they become a student of the practice, then eventually they will witness that light. And when they do, they feel whole and not holier than thou.
It was thank you for taking us through that story, because I was thinking that about your dream when you were dreaming about scoring the touchdown and you dreamed it, and then your eyes popped open and you were like, I'm ready to go. And I imagine that there was some point along this journey where, and maybe you don't know when, but your eyes popped open. You go, okay, now I know why I'm really here. I
Right,
thought it was this, but it's really this.
right. And it's constantly changing as well.
Yes.
But for the most part, like, the journey is the same, but like, there are new roads that are being added to the journey, new paths as well. But you have to be able to adapt with the change,
Yeah.
and realize, like, there is a bigger purpose. So uh, connect with that bigger purpose, be magnetized to that bigger purpose, and to live into it. And whatever comes, just allow it to come and go, just like the wind, just like water, just like the weather, just like anything, in
Yeah.
life, right? And so you enjoy the flow of life. You enjoy living life and not being afraid not to live. And that's when you
Yeah.
really start discovering yourself. You start seeing that. And and the more and more you witness it, the more you normalize it. And it doesn't look like something that's miraculous anymore. It just looks like it's normal.
Yeah.
When other people are like, "Wow, that was miraculous," and you're like, "Yeah, that was normal." Like I say it all the time, and it's just like, "What? Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, how did that happen?" It's just like, "Oh, they did this, 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 this." Yeah, and a little bit of belief and this and right. Yeah, And people like, man, whatever, man. you Mr. Guru, and
Yeah.
and I love it, but it's like I get it. I get it. I see it. I've been exposed to it, to where, like, what you're looking at. Not what you're looking for, but what you're looking at. And
Right.
when you know what you're looking at, like, in the beginning, I didn't know. But when someone exposed me to it, I know what I was looking for. And when I saw what I was looking for, then I eventually learned what to look at. I was just like, oh yeah, that's the cause and the effect. I see it.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah. When I know
so
it, yeah. When I know what I'm looking for, I know what I'm looking at. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, hmm
Huh.
exactly.
So yeah, it sounds to me like what it's have a purpose that lasts a lifetime,
Yeah. Mm, mm.
right? Because if you have a purpose that lasts shorter than a lifetime, you're going to be searching for something you can never get.
Oof. Yep.
Right?
Right.
Huh.
So right. I love that, Mike. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
So Prince, how do people that want to get more of you, work with you, learn from you, what's the best thing for them to do to touch base with you?
Go to my website at princedanielsjr.com. You'll find out a lot of the information of all the things that I'm involved in and that I'm doing. Uh, I have a podcast on Apple and Spotify, and it's called the Prince Daniels Jr. Show. Constantly giving out tons of information there and speaking to incredible individuals that have made it in life and they were successful and been able to maintain the success. Also, do workshops every second and fourth Saturday. Uh, it's my energy series workshop. And when I say energy, I mean inner G, as in your inner greatness, your inner good, your inner godliness, your inner genius, right? And under that bracket of the energy workshop, I have 5 ways to learn how to control and manage your emotions. I have 3 ways to create a powerful mindset, and how to get rid of fear. And so those workshops, they're 2 hours long, and I just shed light on you about how you
Mm,
think and how uh, you approach life, right? So all this does is help you unlock your peak performance, something that's inside of you. But yeah, go there. You go to my Instagram page, and you can click the link in my bio, and you can sign up for all of the things that I have going on, or you can find my book on Amazon.com. It's Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete: Mastering the Balance Between Power and Peace. Forward was written by Calvin Megatron Johnson Jr.
nice. PrinceDanielsJR.com. So I was listening to one of your podcasts and you said something like this. Who's telling you you're not incredible? Is it other people telling you you're not incredible, or is it you telling yourself you're not incredible? And I just want to say you're incredible.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'm telling you you're incredible. I know you already know that, but I'm telling you you're incredible. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your wisdom and your story and your experiences. And it's been amazing. I really have had a great time getting to know you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mike. I received that. I feel it. Thank you. And yeah, I love I love that I said that. Like, it's so funny. Like, I hear some of the things that I say. I'm like, man, where did that come from?
Yeah.
A lot of things is just I channel it. I open myself up to receive the knowledge and the wisdom. And so whenever I verbalize it, you know, I'm in the moment and I'm channeling it. And when I
Yeah.
hear it again, I'm like, oh, when someone echoes it, I'm like, well, wow, I said that. Like, oh, that's awesome. But yeah, it's who is telling you that you are not incredible? Like, someone that feels that they're in competition with you will never tell you that you're incredible. And so if you're looking for validation outside of yourself, then you start your day off, your life off on the wrong foot. You got
Yeah.
to look for that validation within yourself, because it's you that have to go out and go against everything that's going on in the world. People are going to give you a million no's, but that 1,000,001 time, you may get that yes. And so in order for that to happen, you have to build some type of resiliency at home by yourself, at least building some type of positive armory around you, by saying that I'm amazing, I'm incredible, I'm brilliant, I'm powerful. I, you know, so and use those words to do that, and you create this positive armor, so that way, whenever you go out into the world, whenever negativity strikes you, it doesn't bother you at all. You continue to stay on your path and never deviate from it. And so
Right.
those are the reasons why I share those things, and we don't hear that enough. And so my job is to help push that out so people can realize, like, look, raise your vibration level by using these words, these powerful words, because it can work the opposite way. If someone tells you that you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're not enough, and eventually you'll start believing it. So why not substitute those words for something that's positive, so that way you can build yourself up instead of beating yourself down.
Right. Yeah. So for everyone listening, if you're not telling, if you're the one telling yourself you're not incredible, just change it. Tell yourself you are, because that's what you are, and then make it true.
That's
Make it true.
That's it.
Prince, thank you so much.
Mike, thank you so much, my man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did Happen podcast.